psychology programs, we're completely ignoring this whole spiritual aspect of being human. It's not a complete way of looking at what it means to be human. How do we step into power in a way that's not about hierarchy, control, fear, force, domination? How do we do that in a way that doesn't require that we push anybody down, step on them, put our knee to their neck in order for us to feel powerful? The hard job of going within and facing ourselves and overcoming our fears and even seeing our fears and asking the hard questions of who am I and what am I doing here? What turns me on and what I want to do with this short life that we have. It's nothing short of heroic.
Okay, welcome to another just incredible episode of, yes, it is Living Boldly with Purpose. And I'm Dr. B, I'm your host. And just, Christian, I'm so excited about life right now. You know, the older I get, the less that I guess the more life that I want to expand it, because I think it takes to I don't know, it was in my 50s when I actually kind of figured out all the things that, what were my purpose and the things that I want to do. And, and my brain was smart enough to actually realize it and then not waste a whole bunch of time, because I just remember the 20s and 30s and 40s where just I was all over the place. I was just doing all kinds of things. I just, throw it up on the wall and see if it sticks. And then I think, through age a little bit, we start getting some wisdom and we start making better decisions and we start making more tactical decisions and strategizing and saying, what could my life really like if I did this? And then we just don't waste our time on, just stuff that doesn't matter, I think, and then, I guess part of it is, I have kids, so I have 8 children. I have 16 grandkids. But, the life with the kids was that was just total chaos. That was insane when they were growing up, and now, that they're older and they have kids, I can oh yeah, you can bring them over. And they're like, okay, come back and get them. It's time's up. Now you get to go have the chaotic life and be at all the events and do all those wonderful things. And and I've been able, like yourself, to be able to start writing and, to be able to just put some of those thoughts down. And so where I'm at now, I turned 60 in March, and I'm more excited about life ahead of me than I can ever imagine, and just can't wait to just get the fullness out of it and live in the purpose and do it. And so I'm excited to hear your story, because I guess that's the other thing. I've now done about 400 podcasts. And out of these, I've only had when I think about living in purpose or living in purpose, I don't think you can live in purpose without serving other people or without trying to help other people's lives or impact other lives to be better. I've had a couple of guests that say, I'm the king and, whatever I say goes, and, the people around me do what I tell them to do. But that's been very few and far between, where, their thought was everybody's life is better because I'm alive, and I tend not to think that way. I think, what can I do? And I can tell you're kind of the same way. And so, but through these podcasts, I get to be in relationship. I get to learn about people. I get to, listen. And so, it's so fun being on this side of the mic. I don't have to talk as much. I just get to ask questions. I get to listen, and I get to find out more about you. And so, like I asked all my guests, I've asked Christian to literally just start his story, and I tell you can start anywhere you want in life. It's your story. So, there's not I tell the guests this, and sometimes they laugh at me. I say, you can't answer the questions wrong, because it's your life. And if you told it wrong, there's no way I would know anyways, because I haven't known you my whole life. But now your friends who are watching it, and your mom, when she watches it, or your family, they'll go, oh no, you made that up, but that's part of the fun of it. And so I know you're not planning on making it I can't wait to hear your story. The floor is yours, and then we'll just chop it up after that. So thank you so much for being on today and letting me be in part of your life, at least for the next 45, 50 minutes, whatever.
Well, thanks for having me, Dr. B. I really appreciate being here. And I love what you were saying about purpose. To me, that's what drives me too. And I think that is the most important thing that gives us a sense of meaning. I think by now anybody who's spending time listening to something like this or watching something like this knows that there isn't anybody out there who's going to make us happy, and that there isn't any amount of money or possessions or travel or whatever that is ever going to fulfill us. And to me, it's that fulfillment, that happiness can only come from within, and it's related to living our purpose. There's a song by John Aston who basically asked that question, and his answer is to love, serve, and remember. So I'm in agreement with you about serving and making a difference. That's what gives me meaning.
Yeah. Well, that's the purpose, right? I mean, that's, like we go through this life and at some point we have to decide, why am I here? And then from that you go, okay, so what can I do to make it better? And to me, the only thing that's making it better is through that, like you said, love and serve and, and then reflect or remember. I'm thinking, when you think of a person that's on their, their deathbed, if they didn't just go instantly, which I like to do, like go to sleep one night and then just not wake up. But if I am on that deathbed and I'm in the hospital or whatever, I don't think I'm going to reflect on like the jobs I had, or the day-to-day, minute-to-minute. I'm probably going to reflect on, relationships and the time I spent with my kids and the time that I spent helping others and the time that I helped trying to create a legacy that would remember me, and I guess time will probably remember me for a short period of time. But you think 300-400 years from now, I was a blip in the space, but if I knew I mmade an impact. So, oh man, thank you, like I said, for being on and sharing that, because that is so huge. Yeah. Love, serve, remember. I like it.
Yeah, and in terms of applying purpose to my own personal history, I think I've always known, and it's always been what's driven me. And it's looked different ways at different points in my life. Like I was raised in a very Catholic family. I'm one of 9 children, so my parents beat you by 1.
Yes.
And it's so for a while I thought I wanted to be a priest.
Okay.
And then I realized that religion in which I was raised, didn't have enough room for me. So then I thought, I was already studying psychology. My dad was a psychiatrist, so I thought that I would give expression to that through that. Then I started to realize that at least then, when I was in college, the psychology programs were completely not ignoring this whole spiritual aspect of being human, which to me it's integral. So I thought, well, that's not enough. That's not it's not a complete way of looking at what it means to be human. So then I went off on a spiritual journey. I learned about meditation, learned about breath work, started weaving in teachings from the East and from the West, and came up with my own kind of way of approaching life in a way that makes a difference in real human lives. It's it's understanding who we are, why we do the things we do, what makes us do the things we do, how come we get into trouble with our relationships, how do we know what our purpose is, and how do we get out of the way of that knowing? How do we let how do we stop letting the fears of whatever they are? How am I going to be able to pay the bills if I really follow my purpose? How do we learn to move into trust so that we can be informed by that inner knowing, that deeper sense of purpose? And so, so then that's, I've been doing this coaching thing, coaching retreats, workshops for the last over 30 years now. Some of them are based on relationships, how to do relationships consciously in a way that they have a chance of working. I do retreats on personal empowerment. And then how do we step into power in a way that's not about hierarchy, control, fear, force, domination? How do we do that in a way that doesn't require that we push anybody down, step on them, put our knee to their neck in order for us to feel powerful? And then purpose. That's the last of the themes that I work with. How do we know how do we discover what it is? And how do we get out of the way of our fears that have been holding us back from stepping into that?
One of the things I love to just, as you're speaking and I'm hearing you, and you talked about, living this thing in purpose, but then still being able to pay bills. And I think there's just like this, I don't know if it's a misconception that people believe, if you're living in your purpose, you can't make any money, or you can't, pay your bills, or you can't do that. It's like, I have to get to there someday after I've made all my money or done everything I can. And now I can branch off and do the purpose I have. I mean, is that something, I mean, that seems like a common theme, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, I think, what's your thoughts on that? How we do that?
I'm with you. I think life is too short. Mm-hmm. And we're here one day, gone the next. So we just never know, right? So that's one approach to it, is like, I'm going to make money first, and then I'm going to follow my passions, my purpose. There's no guarantee that you're going to be around then. And I'm of the belief that what makes, like we were talking about before, is that is what's going to fulfill us. That's what makes us happy. So why put that off? Yeah. And yes, I live in this world too. I have to pay bills too. And I have learned that when we are connected to that purpose, when we approach this thing we call life with that sense of service and making a difference, like the universe kind of aligns, and we are supported in ways that we can't even begin to imagine, and that our little minds could never come up with. And in my personal experience, it's always worked out. Okay. And sometimes we got too close to like, okay, I need some income right now. But I've never missed a meal. It's always worked out. And so if I can say anything to the audience, it's like, trust.
Hey, it's Dr. B, and let me ask you something just here real quick. Are you tired of doing the same thing over and over and not getting the results you want? Are you serious about making some changes this year that will impact you in a huge way? Maybe you're putting out content right now and it's not turning into customers, or maybe you're uploading videos, but you're not sure why or how it's even going to help. I've seen a lot of people that are making a whole bunch of cold calls to the wrong people, and no one's answering. No one wants to talk to you. It might just be that you're just doing what you've been doing and crossing your fingers, hoping it finally works this year. But let me tell you what, that is not a strategy, and it will continue not to work. That's why I created the Podcasting Challenge, and it's coming up fast. In just a few days, I'm going to walk you through the mindset, the tool set, and the skill set you need to create a powerful podcast. That's right, a podcast. You won't believe what a podcast can do. One that builds real value and creates new clients. And if you grab a VIP ticket, you'll get to join me for a daily Zoom Q&A sessions where I'll personally answer your questions and help you tailor everything to your goals. This is your moment. This is your year. Go to thepodcastingchallenge.com right now and save your seat. The link is in the show notes and the description. Thank you for watching these podcasts. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Like, that is such a big step in our lives, is to learn. So rather than feel like life has it out for us, or like life is waiting, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, or for somebody to sabotage us, is to develop a relationship with life and to do whatever work we need to do, so that we have a trusting relationship with life, and come to that place that life has our back.
Yeah. Well, and with that, when I think of, finding our purpose or figuring out what that is, and realizing that every step that we take, if we listen and we're in tune, can help direct us to what that might be. When I think of my first job after doing a paper route when I was 16 or 17, I was a dishwasher in a restaurant. Now, that wasn't my life's purpose, that I was going to be a dishwasher, but some of the relationships that I was able to cultivate, and some of the people that walked into my path that maybe said, hey, you know what, Brian, you could go do this summer, and you can experience something that I experienced. And then I'd say, oh, okay, let me go try that. Because I think our purpose evolves. I don't know that we can just wake up one day. And I think for some people, like when you thought I'm going to be a priest, that was just an idea of this is what I think I might want to go. But I don't know if we just kind of wake up and say, I have been called to do this and I'm going to do this from day one all the way until I die. And I'm going to be so fulfilled when I do it. It's kind of this. I can remember when I was a school teacher, and I was teaching, that was my purpose for that time. And it just led me to more things. I mean, as you're doing your retreats and you're helping people figure this out, are there people who show up and just go, I'm not living it. I'm not making it happen. I'm not trusting it. And they're just kind of like all over the place and kind of have to wait a minute.
Yes, all the time. That's one of the biggest issues that I see on a recurring basis. But what's interesting, going back to this, whether it's like a constant theme. In my case, it sort of is, because I'm not ordained by any institution or any human, but in a way, the work that I do, it's priestly. Like in the sense, like we're going to define priest as a mediator, somebody who helps people connect with their authentic self, their own spiritual nature, something greater than themselves, whatever they call it, to cut through the BS of the conditioning of childhood and the limiting beliefs, and to drop into the real authentic power. It's like, hey, I do that.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't call it priest.
You don't call it the priest, and you're not having to follow another man's system of fulfilling your purpose. And I think sometimes we get caught up in that all the time. Is like, this man told me this is how I have to do it. Well, that was his calling, he had to do it. And sometimes I feel like, some of the jobs I've had to do and why I felt confined is because it was somebody else's system that I was trying to put my, square peg of who I am into their round hole of, this is how you're going to do it. And if you're going to do it here at my establishment, you're going to do it my way. That kind of
absolutely. And what you're talking about is a major shift in our personal evolution. And I would say that a minority of us has gotten to that point. The majority is still answering to the big man or big brother or whatever it is, or the big boss. And what you're talking about is such a radical shift, which is referencing ourselves, our sense of inner knowing, our intuition, our connectedness for the answers to all the questions that all live inside, but we're so trained to look outside of ourselves for those answers, which is not a good strategy, because they're always going to be filtered by somebody else's experience, somebody else's conditioning, the way that our parents did it, and their parents before that, and their parents before that. And just because it's been done that way doesn't make it right or appropriate for us at this time.
Yeah, and I think a part of, and you can help me out with this, but even in my lifetime, the amount of information and the amount of connectedness that we have access to. I think about, how life must have been in the 16 and 1700s. And, if your family were blacksmiths, most likely you would be a blacksmith, or if your family owned the general store, because you didn't have the ability to reach out. There was royalty, and then there was, the haves and have-nots were so separated that your life's purpose might have been, to take on the family business. And now we have, with everything and being bombarded and being distracted, we have the ability to reach out, but maybe it's so much that there's so much noise. We've gone to the absolute opposite, where, we almost have society that determines for us based on us wanting to fit in.
And I think that connects to what we were talking about before. That to me, that's a heroic thing. It's a lot easier to go by what society thinks we should be doing, or our parents, or the teacher, or the minister, or the spouse. The hard job of going within and facing ourselves and overcoming our fears, and even seeing our fears and asking the hard questions of who am I and what am I doing here, and what turns me on, and what I want to do with this short life that we have. Those are it's hard work, and it's nothing short of heroic in my perception.
Well, and I also, God created us for relationship, and He created us to be in relationship. And that is part of it, is whether we're helping somebody, we find somebody that can be our partner that we do life with, or, we say, this is not what I want. I don't want you anywhere near me, based on my values and the things that I think maybe are shared values. Cause, in order to live in community, we have to have some kind of a value system that allows us to coincide. But how do we do that? How do we find ourselves, but then still, make sure that we're in relationship? Because we're the folks who I know that go out into the forest that try to be by themselves end up coming back.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think humans are social animals.
Yeah.
So we thrive on that. But what does that mean? I just finished writing a book on relationships.
Oh, cool.
And so it's an interesting thing, because I'm writing about conscious relationships, right? And so to me, unconscious relationships are when we approach a relationship out of need, out of not feeling enough, out of feeling insufficient. So then we approach it because you are going to make me happy. Right? If I could only have that one, then I would be complete. Then I would be validated. And to me, that's not a good way to approach a relationship. There isn't anybody out there who's going to make us happy, and it's not their job to. Like, what an unfair thing to dump on somebody else. Your job is to make me happy. Yikes! It's a big responsibility. So,
you'll never match up because
it's impossible to work.
Yeah.
It's not their job to. Only we can make ourselves happy. So that's what a conscious relationship is. Like when we know that only we are going to make ourselves happy. And then there's a whole, different levels of that. These are teachings adapted from Ram Dass, a spiritual teacher, who says if you're going to do relationships consciously, meaning that we know that only we can make ourselves happy, that we are approaching it whole and complete, and then great if we find somebody else that we can walk this life with. Level one is the other person doesn't want to play at this level, right? They have other interests, but enough about the relationship works, right? With sex is good. Maybe you co-parent well together, you cohabitate together, you co-parent well together, or you travel well together, whatever, right? And so we say, hey, okay, it works well enough. I'm going to reclaim all the time, all the energy, all the effort, all the resources that I would otherwise be spending looking for the one, and I'm going to focus up that attention and those resources and that time on my own personal growth and transformation and search for meaning. Valid choice. We'll come back to number 2. Level 3, both beings are already fully realized, like fully aware of our sacred nature, of our interconnectedness to it all. And then the relationship becomes this sacred dance of mirroring that for each other. I don't think we need to worry about that one yet. Let's go back to number 2, which is relationship as a laboratory for growth. That means where both parties are willing to do the work and that a relationship requires. So rather than doing that automatic reaction, you did this and pointing the finger, you do that, you always do this, you never do that, and focusing all that on all that responsibility and blame on the other, right? We take responsibility for all of it. And we say, okay, because there is one of the ways it's so easy to blame others.
Of course. Yeah.
But if we're going to be in a relationship that has a chance of really working and that we can use it as a vehicle for growth where both people are growing, which is that level 2 relationship, where we're using the push and pull, the ups and downs. So when somebody presses my button and I go, ouch, rather than pressing one of theirs and getting them back and getting into that battle of the egos, I'll go, the heroic thing is to say, ouch, that hurt. What was my role in it? How did I get into the situation again? Because if we get really honest, this is not the first time I've had this argument. Yeah. this is not the first time I've had this relationship. It might be with a different co-lead, a different actor, but it's the same boring patterns coming up over and over again. Like the same arguments, the same stuff we get stuck in. So at some point, we got to get really honest and say, wait a minute, there's one common denominator argument in every one of those relationships, and it's right here.
It's right here.
Why do I keep attracting this kind of stuff in my life? And it's hard. Like, it's really hard to look at ourselves that clearly in such harsh light, but it is infinitely worth it, because that's how we begin to see those areas in our life that need healing. And so that we stop creating these patterns that most of the time stem from not valuing ourselves.
Well, and then when we can really start to begin saying, okay, yes, I am the common denominator. These patterns are something that are continuing to happen. Now that I'm working on me, now I can be fully available for that partner, from that person I decided to, because now, like you said, I'm not putting that blame on them anymore. It's not, this is, yeah, you're doing some things that are irritating me, but if I look at myself, why is it truly irritating me that you're doing that?
Yes, that's the question.
That's the question I should be asking, is not, why you keep doing this? It irritates me. It should be,
yes.
Why?
An example that I always use that makes it really clear to understand that. Say you and I have lunch with our friend Joey on every week. I have lunch with him on Monday, you on Wednesdays. Joey is inevitably late. Mm-hmm. And so there I am. It's like, shit, I knew it. I knew that I should have, played with the time and told him an earlier time, or I should have just shown up later. And he's so irresponsible. He's so selfish. He's only worried about his own schedule. And then usually Joey gets there, and because we hate confrontation, we put on a fake smile and we go as if nothing happened. Or then the sarcasm, starts dropping out of the side of our mouth. So where in your case, it's like, wow, he's late. Great. Let me catch up on that call. Let me read the news online, right? There's so many ways to respond or to have a reaction to Joey's lateness. Why do I take it so personally? Why does it bug me so much, right? Why does it get me? Yeah. And it doesn't excuse the lateness. That's another conversation.
That's a whole other thing that Joey has. But at the same, like when you brought up trust not too long ago, I don't know if I can trust him because he's always late. Well, no, I trust him to be late. And when I realize that that's the trust, then I can kind of get through it and go, yeah, we need to get some stuff done. And, and my time is valuable to me, Joey. So, I'm going to leave at this time so I can do whatever I need to do. Whether you get here right when we said we were or later, I've allotted this time for you, and if you want to take advantage of it, that's great. I'm happy with it. If you don't, I'm cool with it too. But it will stop bothering me that I do trust you. I trust you a lot, Joe. I just trust you to be late. I mean, I know.
Yeah. So if I were to do that work, why is it that it bothers me and it doesn't bother you? If I zoom out, I say, wait a minute. It's not only when Joey's late. Right? Because when anybody's late, it gets me. And if I get really honest, it's not just when they're late. It's somebody cuts me off in conversation, cut me off in traffic. Mm-hmm. It kind of generates that same feeling. So what is that feeling? Right? If I do my work and I start going deeper and deeper, it might be something like, I don't feel respected. I don't feel honored. Mm-hmm. And probably underneath that means there's some layer of, I don't feel like I'm worthy of that. Mm. And that's the juicy part, right? That we can do something about. Mm-hmm. If we're just focused on Joey's lateness, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to keep repeating that same old boring pattern until we heal that little part of us that's way underneath that doesn't feel worthy. Yeah. And so that's that's why it's so valuable to do the work and ask the hard questions, because at the end of it, the reward is freedom.
Oh, it is. It is. When in that kind of thing doesn't bother you because you feel good about yourself and you don't need him to validate how you feel or him honoring you. Well, he has to honor me for me to feel validated that I am worthwhile. But if I already feel worthwhile, then all right, Joey, knock yourself out. Or you go find different folks
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
validate it, right? Because Joey doesn't have to
Exactly.
be your friend, does he?
Exactly. We have the conversation with Joey 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and Joey's still showing up late, and it doesn't work for us. We have a choice to make about having lunch with Joey.
So how do we then, inside of these relationships, begin to work on us? I have a whole system. I'm even creating a community called Becoming the Person, which is all about, starting out with identity and then moving to legacy and then, mastering the legacy, about becoming the person that God put you on this earth to be. And when I'm thinking through, the things that you're sharing with us, part of that has to be us working on us. And how do we begin that process of stopping I'm blaming you for everything that's wrong with my life. That might be the outer circle of it. But once I get past that, now I'm having to look in that mirror and I'm not like exactly happy with that mirror, but I want to be. And what are things I can begin to do, or the amount of time that I need to spend on that inner healing so that I can be more?
Yeah, great question. And there's so many ways that we can dive in, right? So the first thing is making that choice.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know who I am, and I want to understand why I do the things I do, so that I can bring choice back into the equation, and rather than living my life from subconscious, unhealed part of ourselves. Like, so we're not even aware of why we do the things we do. Something happened between our parents when we were kids, or our parents got divorced, or a teacher said something to us the wrong way and we took it personally. We don't even remember that stuff half the time. And yet we're making our choices about our lives, about our relationships from those places that are not healed and aren't even true. They're just misunderstandings of young minds that didn't know any better and misinterpreted something, misheard something, were told something in a moment of overwhelm, and we took it on as fact. And that stuff, those beliefs, those lies, those misunderstandings have been getting in the way of our relationships our entire lives. So the first step is making the choice. I want to know who I am and why I do the things we do, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. That is the first step, and that will begin to open doors, right? We can start. There's so many paths that we can do, but when we at a soul level get so clear, opportunities are going to present themselves that we don't even see coming, right? But in general, there's many. You can go to therapy, you can go to coaching, you can go to retreats, you can read books that are going to help you that deeper understanding of who we are and what makes us tick.
I love that you said that, because I hear people who say, well, I don't have time to do all that. And I want to yell back at them, you don't have time not to do it, because if you don't, your life is going to pass you by, right? I mean,
I agree.
My gosh. And then when you start thinking about, and the things that you kind of even talked about is possible solutions to it is, I've always heard, like, physicians cannot heal themselves. They need, they need our body, they need everything else. And somehow we think that if I just think about it hard enough, or lay down long enough, or just imagine it long enough, it's all of a sudden it's going to fix itself. But I think we truly need outside influences, whether it's a book, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a therapy session. It's other folks that has either been there before, that are teaching us through, their words and their, ways that they do things, or it's just us finding something that's worked maybe for somebody else instead of trying to reinvent everything. Because so many times, we get in our own heads. If somebody knows what I'm thinking or knows a little bit more about me, then I guess that somehow I'm not enough, or I'm less, or I got to hide this all to myself. I can't. So how do we begin to make sure, do we start with, I'm just going to go to the bookstore and go to the self-help section and spin around and point to fucking that's what I figured.
Well, I think anybody who's watching this already started, right?
Yeah,
they gravitated
absolutely
to your podcast in particular, where you're not talking superficial BS stuff. You're diving deep and you're asking significant questions. So I think if anybody heard you or came to watch you and they weren't ready for it, they wouldn't have lasted this long, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't still be watching you.
Yeah, that's true.
So I really, I mean, my experience, I really do believe that when we get that clear and we make the choice, even if it's communicated internally, just to us, we haven't said it, the universe responds, life responds, and opportunities will start showing up.
Hello, this is Dr. B, and I want to ask you one simple question. What if you died having never become you? Now, I don't mean the version of you that worked the job, raised the kids, or chased security. I mean the person God actually designed you to be, the real you. Because there's a version of your life that's already been written, and it's full of peace, it's full of boldness, it's full of purpose, and of course it's full of power. But most people, many people, they miss it. They live distracted, doubting, disconnected, and deep down they wonder, is this really all there is? But not you and not today. That's why we created the Becoming the Person universe. It's a living, breathing community of people saying, I want to be who God called me to be. Not someday, but right now. So inside, we'll walk you through 3 levels of transformation. Level 1 is all about identity, where you finally see yourself clearly and know exactly who you are and who you need to become. Level 2 is about mastery, where we develop the disciplines to grow. And then finally, level 3 is legacy, where your life begins to matter beyond you. And hear me. I want you to hear me clear here. This is not a place to passively belong. This is a place to grow, lead, and thrive. We even have ways for you to share in the revenue as we grow, because we believe in building legacy together. And I want you to know the founders and I are praying for you. We have been praying for you. You have been on our hearts. Yes, you have been on our hearts. You're not watching this by accident. And I want to personally invite you to the next info meeting, where we will go over all this community has to offer. All you have to do is just click the link before, you know what to do. But now it's your turn. I want to ask you to ask yourself, what if this is the moment everything changes? What if this is the reason you've been searching? What if all God has been waiting for is for you to say yes? There's a seat for you here, whether you're rediscovering yourself or finally ready to leave a legacy and are ready to contribute. Either way, this is the Becoming the Person universe. And once you're in, your life will never be the same. So I can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to spend time with you. I can't wait to see you on the other side. So let's go live in that purpose, and let's do it together.
And you know, I think of that image from Indiana Jones, I forget which one, I guess the Holy Grail one, where he's standing on this side of the cliff, and then there's, you know, this endless chasm, and it's only till he realizes that he has to step into the void, and then the bridge shows up.
Yeah.
That's kind of the bad news. We have to initiate the first step.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, and we have to be willing to take that step and that risk.
Yes.
And sometimes we're not ready yet. You know, we haven't become that person who is willing to take that risk. But if we continue to work on ourselves, then we can start doing it and then begin to trust ourselves a little bit more, and then begin to step out a little bit more. Right? I mean, it's
totally. But you know what? To anybody watching this, wait till you're ready, but don't wait too long, because life goes by so fast, and you have how your life is going to change in such profoundly positive ways. You're going to start seeing yourself in such different ways. You're going to stop doing all the unconscious stuff, all the self-sabotaging patterns. You're going to be able to heal the self-doubt, the self-hatred, and transform that into self-confidence and self-love. And then everything changes from that. The quality of our relationships, the kind of jobs we gravitate to, or they gravitate to us, it all changes. So the deeper the self-love, that's all going to be reflected in all aspects of our lives. And I totally agree with what you were saying about needing that. It's good to have an external mirror, because we have blind spots.
Yeah.
You know, there's stuff that's in the back of our heads that I'm never going to see. I'm looking at that mirror, it's back here. I look at that mirror, and that's the other way. I'm never going to see it, but boy, can I see it over there, which is another thing about conscious relationships, by the way. Which is whatever they do gets us, the more that it bugs us, the clearer the sign that we also do that in some way.
Oh, yeah.
The details will be completely different, but that's the nature of projection. We can't accept it here, so we judge it and evaluate it and make it wrong over there.
Talk to me a little bit about distractions, because I think one of the biggest enemies to us moving forward or to healing ourselves or being, whole is all these things that our lives are bombarding us with that are so much easier to do. Right? It's easy for me to watch a football game for 3 hours and then watch somebody else's success, dreaming about my own, but watching somebody else succeed, than it is for me to go do what it takes. Or, I get on this device here and I just start, aimlessly scrolling. I don't even know if I'm searching for anything, but there's just, there's so many, especially these days, there's so many distractions. How do we not be distracted when it's all around us?
Yeah, and I totally relate to that. When I'm on a deadline writing a book, my kitchen and my bathroom are spotless. I'm like, always, no, I got to do that first. No, I got to go do that first.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's, I don't think there's any way around it. It's a matter of choice and self-discipline. And part of that, which is, which I work with people and that our desire for something has to be greater than the resistance that will inevitably come up for it. So my wanting X has to be greater than whatever, the fear of it, or I don't want to go through, the 12 steps that are going to take me to get there, or the resistance, right? Part of the function of the ego mind is to resist change, even if its job is to maintain the status quo. Even if the status quo is at best comfortable, at worst miserable, it doesn't care. Part of his job is to hold on to things and to keep things the way that they are. So anything that signifies change, it's going to be threatening to it and it's going to resist it, even if change is good. So with understanding how this works and how the mind works, then we can do something about it. Like we can expect, right? We can anticipate that resistance will come up so that we can do something about it, right? Bypass it. And bottom line is our desire for something has to be greater than the resistance.
Wow. One of the things that, I guess if this is me confessing to a priestly person, right? just
between us, right?
Yeah, just between us, right? When I think about you learn some of these things and you start feeling really good about you, and then all of a sudden you want to go fix everybody else, right? You have this, my purpose is to XXXXX. And sometimes it is, I'm going to go help. It's like when I first started teaching, right? My purpose was I'm going to go find all these high school kids that I'm going to go, be the teacher of, and I'm going to fix all of their problems and prepare them for life. And because I'm here, their lives are now going to be tremendously better. And I guess what I realize, and I don't want other folks to get in that trap, is my job isn't to fix anybody. My job is to continue to heal myself and understand me so that I can walk alongside folks and say, these are my experiences. It may work for you or it may not, but I'm not here to tell you or judge you or put it in any place that I'm going to fix your problem. How do we help folks that have decided that they're going to fix everybody that they can't?
That's a tough one. And I think, I guess understanding that it's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
That they have come across something that worked for them, that helped them have their lives work better or whatever, have relationships that, overcome a problem in a relationship, find a sense of purpose. And so it's normal, it's human. But one thing to know, like you were saying, it's like we can't. Like if you can't force anybody, you can't. Yeah. It's more about being the beacon, the lighthouse, and shining so bright that at some point they're going to look in our eyes and say, "Hey, I want some of what he's got. Like, tell me about that class you were taking. Tell me about that podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that breathwork you were talking about, or that meditation, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more that. Because of the ego's resistance to change, if we start approaching them and trying to force them and lead them, by the hand, they're just going to resist.
Yeah. And when I was working in homeless services a few years back, I realize here, at least I'm in Denver, Colorado, and you look across the city and, there's money trying to be shared by everybody for just one issue of, fixing homelessness or correcting homelessness. And, I realized that there was like 63 organizations in like a 5-mile radius that are all trying to do the same thing, and nobody could come together. Everybody's got their own solution. And I felt like the folks who are experiencing homelessness are just like a pinball that's just being bounced all around to everybody who's got the next greatest idea. And like, why can't we come together? What is it that is about my ego that says, and I know one solution doesn't fit everybody, and there should be multiple ways of doing it, but at the detriment of the person who is lost. I mean, and that, when I kind of see when most of the folks that have been experiencing homelessness and you have conversations with them, whether they've lost their drive to live, or they just lost their, ability to figure out and solve problems, or they're just kind of lost. And how do we help people through some of that where we're just not all fighting for the same resources different ways? And I don't know if there's a solution. I'm just
that's a complex one. And to me it goes back to the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we don't have time to really get into what the ego is. It's a big conversation, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, right? Most of us who know the word will think big ego, arrogance, inflated sense of self, and it is that, but it's a lot more than that. But here's a great metaphor that helps to understand what the ego is. It's a part of us, it's a part of the personality. It's the sense of self. Ego means I in Latin, so it's that sense of myself, of I-ness. Like, this is Christian, that's Dr. B over there. In some ways, you could say it's ultimately illusion, and both a helpful illusion and the source of all our problems. But if you here's a really helpful way to think about it. If you put a baseball in the center of a stadium, that's the ego. Who we are is actually the freaking stadium. And we've allowed this tiny, tiny part of who we are to think that it is all who we are, and to make really important, consequential choices about our lives and about ourselves and about our relationships and what we do with all of that from its very small and always limited and always fear-based perspective. So to me, part of the journey of freeing ourselves is understanding what that ego is and freeing ourselves from its self-made prison.
I love that analogy because it's so small and yet it controls so much of what we do, how we feel, how we move through life. And we allow it to because we probably don't understand it enough. And the more that we understand it, probably the smaller that ball gets. Maybe it turns into a marble at some point. That would be the goal, right? That it controls this much of my life and the rest of it moves forward. When you talk about trust and being able to trust, and I think it's a big part of everything that we do. And whether it's we're trusting other individuals, we're trusting systems, but ultimately we're trusting ourselves. Yes. How do we develop that trust where we can trust? Because we're the only person who knows every lie we've ever told. We're the only person who knows that we've made stuff up. We're the only person who knows that we probably have said things that we believed that we were capable of, and then didn't realize that we really weren't until we tried it and it didn't work. And then we go down this rabbit hole of, not being enough or not feeling that we're capable. How do we build that trust within ourselves so that we can move forward?
What a beautiful question, Brian. To me, this whole journey that we're talking about, which is a hero's journey, about discovering who we are and then having the courage to be that in the world, no matter what anybody else thinks or says we should do. It's a journey of self-discovery. So it all begins with that, right? And that requires looking within. To me, there's no way around that.
You can't, yeah.
If you want to be free, if you want to have a sense of personal empowerment, if you want to have a life that is filled with meaning, with purpose, if you want to have relationships that have a chance of working, you've got to go within. You got to understand who you are. You have to meet yourself and face yourself. And there's only you can do that. And so that's a journey that it's a lifelong journey. I don't think it ever ends. It is a challenging journey, but is the most fulfilling thing that we can do. And from that, everything will change. Our entire lives will change as we dive into who we are and get to know ourselves and begin to understand the patterns. Like, where do we give our power away? Is it in this type of relationship or that type of relationship? Am I attracted to this kind of person or that kind of person? Do I like chocolate or vanilla at the most superficial sense? But it's a beautiful journey of discovery, and it's a heroic journey because in the process we've got to face ourselves and realize that. I mean, some of the stuff that we've been running away from, which I see it all the time when people who come to me for retreats and to do breath work, they have spent a lifetime running away from themselves because they didn't want to remember something that happened in childhood. And I get that. I get people go through trauma and stuff that should never happen. So I get that desire and that instinct to not think about it. But the thing is, you can't put that stuff under the sweep it under the rug. It's not going to go away. It's only going to continue to have an impact on the quality of our lives from the unconscious. And so there's no way around it. And it's heroic work. I'll say it one more time, and so worthwhile. Right? And it begins by dropping in and asking ourselves the hard questions. And you might discover you might end up falling in love with yourself.
Yeah. Hopefully that's what happens. I mean, that's because we're the person that we have to see most often.
Yes, there's no running away.
We go everywhere with ourselves, which is yeah. You recently wrote a book, and I want you to talk about that a little bit. I mean, I can tell the deepness of just your thought process and the things that you talk about is something that I think would be enjoyable for somebody to read. But maybe kind of, what am I going to learn when I pick up your book and, I start to work through this? And I know you said it may have been about relationships and I always want those to be better. I want those to be incredible because that gives me a sense of fulfillment. If I believe that somebody asked me on a podcast a few days ago, he said, what is impact? And when I thought about it and I answered, I said, impact is when I walk out the door, I have a conversation with another individual, and somehow their life is better because I showed up. That's impact. And that's not maybe on a massive scale, but it's on a daily scale, which really matters. And so by reading, what can I do? I want to learn.
Well, this third book just came out 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
It's called Conscious Love, Transforming Our Relationship to Relationships. Okay. So transforming how we approach what we expect from a relationship. So we talked a little bit about conscious relationships and approaching it not as a place to fill a hole that we feel inside. And so I get into different challenges, into 10 challenges, stuff that get in the way of our relationship, like approaching it with unrealistic expectations, looking for somebody to complete us. Forget it. Nobody's going to complete us. Settling for less, right? How often, how many times have we settled for less in a relationship? How many times have we overridden the yellow light, the yellow flags and the red flags because we didn't want to be alone? Or whatever the reason for it was, right? Understanding what love is. Right? There's a whole section on that, because so that we don't mistake infatuation for love, so that we don't mistake attraction for love, so that we don't like, here's a great definition. One last thing I'll say about love, and this one comes from Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled, who talks about the difference between the feeling of love, the emotion of love, and the act of loving. Because we think love is that feeling, is that great, amazing feeling where we're in love with somebody else. But think about disciplining a child, right? Or a child's about to run onto a busy street. No, right? You got to use emotion. Sometimes even anger or fear comes up. That doesn't feel good. But it's an act of love for the sake of the child, of the safety of the child. So if love isn't a feeling and it doesn't always feel good, and we can't go by the highs or the lows of the feelings, then, he said love is an act. And he defines it as when we place ourselves outside of our comfort zone for the sake of the growth, and he even says spiritual growth of another person. That's love, which takes it to a whole other level.
Well, and just the fact that you're conscious about it, because I think, like you said, sometimes because we have a hole or we have a deficit in our lives, we're attracted to somebody that we think might fill that deficit. And that becomes many cases, a toxic relationship, because the expectation is, well, I got into this because I had this hole in my life, and I decided by us being together that you're going to fill that hole.
Right.
I see that a lot in, sometimes in like divorced couples or folks that have been through a relationship that ended not pleasantly. But they enjoyed the companionship. They stayed in that relationship for whatever reason, and now that one's over, and now they're saying, okay, well, I need to fill that void of that companionship that I need, and in order to do that, 8 billion people on the planet, and they can't find the 400,000 that are compatible. They find the other ones that are exactly like the relationship that was toxic. Yeah. They repeat that over.
Here's a great quote from the Course in Miracles. It's not our job to look for love, but to look within ourselves for the obstacles to love. Right? So what are those obstacles, right? Yeah. Believing that I'm not good enough. Believing when we approach a relationship thinking that you're going to make me happy, that's an obstacle. Having, all the beliefs, the negative beliefs that if I get into another relationship, I'm going to lose myself. All relationships end up in divorce, or, all men cheat, or you can't trust women, whatever those beliefs are, those are obstacles. And so that's why there's no way around doing that heroic work of diving within and asking ourselves, why do we do the things we do? Why do we believe the things we believe? Why do I get stuck in these patterns that sometimes, like I said earlier, feel like the same boring movie, just with a different co-lead?
Yeah. And I know that, you continue to, share with us some of the things that we have to do within ourselves and those voids that we have to fill. And I think about, some of those relationships that maybe I might feel like right now it's not working, or I'm ready to give up, or I'm ready to run because it seems like it's that toxic. What are some things that I can do to work on me without putting all that blame on the other person, that just exacerbates the whole notion of this isn't working? And I know some relationships aren't just going to work. They probably should have never happened. Right. But I think there's some that are there, but because we can't get off of what they're doing to me,
right, that's it, right? You got to get off of that. And nobody's doing anything to us, right? That is a major shift, and it's probably the hardest shift, which is another way of saying it or labeling it or talking about it, is popping ourselves out of victim consciousness. What they did to me, if only. Mom had done this, daddy hadn't done that, if only the system, the teacher, racism, homophobia, sexism, and not to deny that those things don't exist. They do. But as long as we're blaming somebody or something for our state of being, we're just giving our power away, right? And it sucks, right? Sometimes the way the system is set up sucks. Things happen in our past that sucked, and I'm so sorry, and I wish they hadn't happened. And what are you going to do about it, right? How are you going to show up in response to that? That's the stuff of heroes. And that's where freedom lies and personal empowerment.
I'm getting it. I'm getting it. The sum of heroes and freedom lies in that. The list. We talked about conscious love, and your book is about conscious love. And, I've heard so many times you're supposed to have a list. You even talk about not settling for. How important is that list, and how comprehensive should that list be of this is what I believe I need, or I believe that I can enhance this relationship as being part of it. That list of, and I guess some of it are physical attributes, but some of it are also, the type of person, like we talked about Joey, right? If I'm a person who's going to hate that somebody's late, then I probably don't want to find, I know opposites attract, but I probably don't want to find a person who's late all the time to be part of my world. How that list, what does it look like?
Make your list, but get clear. But what it is you want in a partner, but make clear you know what's negotiable and what's not. Right? So bring down to the things that are right, whatever they are for you, right? If they smoke, forget it. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Or, whatever it is, what's negotiable and what's not.
What's not.
And do your own work,
yeah.
Right? Be willing to ask the hard questions. Why do I want that? Why do I believe that? Is it really authentically what I want, or is this conditioning? Is this what my parents did?
Yeah.
Is this what society tells me is good? Do the work. There's no way around it, and it is infinitely rewarding.
Yes.
To do it.
Well, yeah, we'll make that list to buy a house, but we won't make it for a list of somebody we're going to live with in that house for the rest of our lives. Those negotiables, non-negotiable. Well, we also should probably do that for friendships, associations, people that we go hang out, people that we're helping, right? That's the work, is not just, okay, whatever shows up, I'll just take it and we just go that way. It literally having conscious decision about this.
Yes, make a list and then let it go, right? Trust love.
Gotcha. Okay.
Trust love.
Trust love. Okay. All right. So as we're winding down, I'm sure there's some things that we didn't talk about that I'm sorry, I was super selfish. I asked you all the questions that I wanted to know because I figure I understand that you are the expert in a lot of this area and what you've been doing, as part of your life. But, how do we get a hold of you? What are the things that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure that we talk about in this episode today?
Dr. B, you and I could talk for hours.
I know.
We wouldn't run out of stuff to talk about. So no, it was a great conversation. I enjoyed it. In terms of how to reaching me, my website is probably the best way. And then from there, they can access my social media.
Okay.
The website is soulfulpower.com. soulfulpower.com. And I look forward to hearing from your audience and serving them in whatever way I can. I know self-doubt. I know self-hatred. My entire adolescence was one long depression. These days, no matter what happens, no matter the details, the circumstances, relationship works out or it doesn't, a project succeeds or it fails, never, ever, ever do I question my sense of self. So I know if that can happen in me, it can happen in anybody.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for being willing to share with us not only the things that you're doing to help others, but your own vulnerabilities, your own things in your life that have been things that you've learned from. And I hope if you guys are watching this and this is your first episode, that you will, go ahead and hit the subscribe and notification, all that things, because I think we just have so many good episodes that are out there. But I would encourage you to watch this one again, especially if you're thinking about you're feeling like you're not enough, or you're feeling like, you haven't done all the things that, that should allow you to be able to move forward or to move ahead. Like you've somehow done something wrong and you deserve what life is giving you. And in many cases, it's not that it's just life in the way that it is. It's not whether you deserved it or not, but there's absolutely something that you can do about it. And there's ways, and there's people out there. If there's anything that I learned in this conversation today is I'm not in this by myself. I'm not in this alone. There are people out there who have gone through some of the same things I've gone through and have got through it. Sometimes, Christian talk about when I was at the, in the black church when I was growing up, and there were all of these ladies that were sitting in the front of the room. They always had white on, had white hats, white scarves, white dresses, everything, white shoes, everything. And then, and those were like your elders that you went and come and talk to. And I can remember I would come to Miss Johnson like every week, and I'm like, "How you doing, Miss Johnson? How you doing?" She said, "Blessing the Lord, blessing the Lord." And I said, "Well, things going good for you this week?" And she's like, "I'm going through it, but it's going to be okay." And I started thinking, like, does Miss Johnson ever get through it? She always, like, 27 years and she's still going through it. And I don't want anybody to feel like that. Like, you got to go day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, going through stuff that it all can change. And so I encourage you to, purchase Christian's book and learn about conscious love, and not just waiting for it to happen, but you still have to trust it. I learned that today as well. You have to trust love. Any final thoughts? And then we'll be done for today.
No, thank you. Just a thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for having the show. Absolutely. I know that because you're willing to do this show, lives are being impacted, to use that word again. Yeah. So I really do believe that we're all in this together. So we're all carrying each other home and pulling each other home, sometimes pushing and kicking each other's butt home. But we're all on that journey. So thank you. Thanks again.
All right. And thank you guys for staying. And you stuck with us this long. You deserve a round of applause. It has been an amazing conversation. I just want you, in my belief, that you are God's greatest gift, and He loves you if you allow Him to. And I can't wait to talk to you on the next one. Have a great, wonderful, awesome, just incredible, awestruck day today. See ya.